A lot of stories about past lives are predominantly told or remembered by children. I am quite curious if this is due to the undeveloped brain of a child, as by 5 to 8 the past life memories tend to fade. Or if it is because of the undefined beliefs that can allow for a child to channel any spiritual energies with more ease, due to the brain not being fully developed. The pioneer on the study of past lives was Dr. Ian Stevenson, who went to the University of Virginia. He traveled around the world for 40 years studying young children with the memories of their past lives. A pattern he found was that people will have similar personalities to their previous life, as well as similar talents. They also can look exactly like they did in a past life. The children who remembered their past lives usually told the stories and/or discussed their memories between the ages of 2 to 5. It was common for children who remembered their past lives to form sentences and speak earlier than other children. By 8 to 9, the memories would usually fade. They usually had vivid memories of passing in horrible ways. Dr. Ian Stevenson wrote an essay called The Evidence for Survival from Claimed Memories of Former Incarnations, which came in first place in a contest hosted by the American Society for Psychical Research. An Irish medium named Eileen Garrett took interest in his work and wanted to fund a trip to India, where he wanted to conduct an interview with a child that claimed to remember his past life. While in India, he interviewed/found 25 other children who claimed to have memories of their past lives. In 1966, he wrote a book called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnations. The concept of reincarnation is quite popular in India. Now, some past life stories. A working-class couple from Britain, John and Florence, had 2 children, Jonah and Jacqueline. Jonah was older and quite fond of Jacqueline, always mothering her. Jonah would always say quite interesting things, the most important thing being, "I will never be a lady," implying that she might never grow up. When Jacqueline was 3, she had tripped and fell into an empty bucket, creating a horrible cut over her eye near her nose. The cut would become a permanent scar that was noticeable during colder weather. Also, an important detail is Jacqueline had a birthmark on the left part of her waist. So moving on to the day May 7, 1957, Jonah was 11 and Jacqueline was 6. They were walking to church with a friend of theirs. They were unaware of the events soon to transpire. There was a woman who was not mentally sound driving a vehicle with the intent to take her own life. But she swerved onto the sidewalk the children were walking on and ended up hitting them. They passed away instantly. The father, John, blamed himself as he had made a request to God to show him proof of reincarnation. He believed that his daughter's passing was God punishing him. The mother, Florence, who had the opposite view to John, nearly separated from him as he claimed their deceased daughters would return as twins. Later that year, Florence would be pregnant, fueling John's belief in reincarnation, even though the nurse explained that there would only be a single child, as this is what observations proved. Florence gave birth to twins. The twins were named Gillian and Jennifer. The twins portrayed personalities that were similar to Jonah and Jacqueline, and Jennifer had a birthmark where Jacqueline had the scar on her face, as well as another birthmark that was the exact replica of the one on Jacqueline's waist. The twins would claim toys as their own. For example, Gillian spotted a toy clothes wringer and reached for it, saying, "There is my wringer," the wringer previously belonging to Jonah. Things would become more eerie when the twins would discuss details pertaining to the accident their siblings were involved in. For example, the mother overheard a conversation where Gillian was holding Jennifer's head, saying, "Blood's coming out of your eyes, that's where the car hit you." And this could be confirmed by the father as he identified the bodies and saw there was a bandage right above Jacqueline's eyes. Dr. Stevenson would continue to watch the similarities between the twins and their siblings. It was to be noted that the twins had a strong aversion to traffic. Fun fact: the first car was created January 29, 1886. It was a 3-wheel Benz patent motor car. The inventor was Carl Benz. Continuing on, the girls would say when around traffic that cars were going to harm them. Later in life, Dr. Stevenson would have the twins' DNA tested and discovered they were monozygotic twins, meaning they come from the same egg. He claimed that since the girls were genetically identical, Jennifer's birthmarks that resembled Jacqueline's scar and birthmark couldn't be explained. Then suddenly at the age of 5, the memories of their deceased sisters completely ceased. Dr. Stevenson maintained lifetime contact with the family until his death. Something to note is the twins did become skeptical of the idea of reincarnation. This was expressed to Dr. Stevenson in an interview when they were 20 years old. But also something quite interesting is Gillian started having what she called inner visions, where she would see, in vivid detail, a home in Wickham she had never been before. But Jonah had grown up there. Though the faults of the Pollock twins' story are: 1. Dr. Stevenson himself was not present for the alleged moments that mirrored past behaviors or statements that discussed past memories of the deceased siblings, and the information he got was relayed to him by the father John. It is important to note that John is a strong believer in reincarnation, so his statements can be biased. Skeptics believe the girls could have overheard facts about their deceased siblings and turned it into a game. They believe this explains their loss of interest as they grew older, as well as the sudden end to these past life memories. However, the presence of Jennifer's birthmarks remains incredibly hard to explain away rationally. Now I will discuss the case of James Leininger. He was an American boy born in the year 2000 who loved planes. His parents would take him to the museum, and he would become fascinated with specifically World War II planes. James, who was not even 2 yet, would explain details about planes that his parents didn't even know. This would always stun them. Over time, James would start to have nightmares. He would repeatedly shout, "Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out." As James grew a little older, his parents asked him about the bad dreams. James said they weren't dreams at all, but rather memories. He claimed to have been struck down by the Japanese. He even identified the plane he claimed to fly as a Navy Corsair. At 2.5 years old, James told his parents that he had flown his plane from a big boat, calling it the Natoma. Incredibly, the US Navy had in fact operated an escort carrier off Japan, where James had claimed he had been struck down by the name of US Natoma Bay. Time would pass and James would point out a specific place in a book the father was reading. James claimed that his plane had been struck down near Meiji Shirabachi. James would draw battle scenes of airplanes, and he would sign them James 3. When asked why, he said it was because he was the third James. James' father was able to connect to a veteran who invited him to the reunion of the Natoma Bay crew. There he learned that towards the end of the war, on one of the ship's last missions at the Battle of Iwo Jima, a single pilot had gone missing and was presumed shot down by the Japanese. A 21-year-old named James M. Houston Jr. Even more incredibly, the young James gave the name of his wingman, Jack Larson, who confirmed the events that led to James Houston Jr.'s passing. The young James was able to remember details of his past life's family, and the parents were able to come in contact with Houston's sister. And she confirmed a lot of the memories that young James had. As people investigated James' case, it was hard to refute it as there were too many consistencies and facts to back up these memories. Skeptics were unable to disprove this theory, opposite to the Pollock twins. So, I've been thinking about things related to the Pollock twins and James' case. With the Pollock twins, what I find quite intriguing is the birthmark, as it is the main thing besides Gillian, recalling a place she's never been, that sticks out to me. So I learned that some birthmarks are hereditary. This can explain the one on Jennifer's side. Though noting that birthmarks are mostly not hereditary, the fact that there was a birthmark where Jacqueline had her face scarred when she fell in a basket, that birthmark would not be hereditary, as it is a scar. I also find it interesting that the twins became skeptics of reincarnation. Another thing I want to note is the development of the human brain. At birth, the average brain size of a baby is a quarter of an adult-sized brain. It then doubles in size in the first year. It grows to 80% of an adult brain at 3, and 90% to nearly full-grown by age 5. Is it possible, if the Pollock twin story is true, the mind developed into a more structured foundation for future learning, plus going with what I know about the subconscious, it possibly forming a set notion focused on their current life? And like many people say, when they hit 25, which is the age the average brain is considered done developing, they feel like a new person. This is only a theory. The things that intrigued me about the James case is the information that James had that surpassed the knowledge of the parents. I had to keep reminding myself that James was a 3-year-old. So even the possibility of him somehow sneaking onto the newly formed internet searching about planes and doing a deep dive into a specific person's life with an about 4 to 5-year-old search system. as Google was created in 1998 and James was born in 2000, and maybe younger than 3, he started spitting out these facts. It doesn't seem completely possible. Also, the confirmation with the sister and the veterans was extremely important, as well as knowing the name of the wingman who confirmed events of James Houston Jr.'s passing. What was also cool is that they shared the same name. And the young James considering himself James III was such an intriguing detail. As what 3-year-old is seeing Junior and calling themselves the third James. So there is a lot more information about reincarnation. There are still some more facts in my notes. You can check them out in my description. Though as usual I want to keep these short. So this is it. Thank you for existing.